Fredericksburg, been here since 1990. So, but I've never been in this building. Of course, the building is fairly new, right? 2 years? Lynn, is it, how many years old is it? Two. All right, so yeah, SimVentions. We started the company in 2000, and we are a defense contractor, and we do a lot of engineering, doing modeling, simulation, software development, system engineering, cybersecurity engineering, program management. And so we are very interested in the talent pool that's out there, especially coming out of colleges, but we recognized a while ago that the pipeline starts probably in the 6th grade. When you think about it, right? Think about in 10 years where they're going to be, those that are in the 6th grade. Think about where they're going to be in 15 years. In 15 years, hopefully they're sending a resume to SimVentions, all right? Hopefully they've taken some sort of technical approach towards where they're going, but it doesn't have to be technical. It can be English, right? We need writers. Like, we like writers. We want to write well. We want to be able to have good communication that's out there. But we need those math guys. We need engineers. We love engineers. We've got a lot of folks from Virginia Tech, a lot of the different schools across the state, including right here, even though we don't have an engineering program at Mary Washington, but we do have a lot of students from Mary Washington who are programmers, and they're great programmers. So I want to share with you a few thoughts tonight and engage with you and give you an opportunity to ask me some questions. The first thing, up here at this table, you'll see some literature. If you're really interested, I'm not going to give you a full business development brief on SimVentions, but if you want to know a little bit more, there's some literature over there. There's a few folders, just a handful. It's got, if you know somebody that's looking in the job market, there's some information in there. There's a bunch of these folders here too, and that tells you a little bit about who we are, kind of our story. And then I grabbed a handful of our corporate capability slides. So we are located in Stafford, Virginia, right across from Riverside Theater. Does everybody know where that's at? Okay, we're real close. We were in Spotsylvania, and about 20 months ago we transitioned north to the old Geico building. So Geico used to be in our space. You know, when you think about what we do, really, and let me just kind of describe it in one single sentence. What does SimVentions do? Defense contracting. What is it that we actually do? I would tell you that we strengthen and we sustain the U.S. military, personnel, and technology with innovative solutions. So think about that word innovation. What does that mean to you? How important is that? And then start thinking about STEM. This is why we love STEM. We're big advocates of STEM. We see the value in it. So we've got a number of our folks at SimVentions who try to volunteer when they can, be a part of this. The STEM Summit that was in February over there at, help me out, Massaponax, right? How many folks were there? All right, hey, you guys got to go next year. So I think it's STEM 16. That's the group within this area. And they put that on every year. It's really, really cool. So we're big advocates of STEM. And for us to be relevant in the future, we need to look for the next generation of innovators. And that's why I'm really excited to be here with you guys, because you guys are working with that next generation of innovators. Okay? For us to continue on, right? So we want to make an impact in our community, and STEM is a pipeline for us. So the question is how do we cultivate that even further? How do we cultivate that innovation? How can we foster that in our community? So I want to share with you a little bit of a story, one that you might be familiar with here in just a moment. So tonight, just for a few minutes, I want to talk about being a mentor to students using STEM, and then being that mentor you were meant to be, myself included. So I do want to start with a story, and this will be familiar, and it starts with a question. How many of you are familiar with Star Wars? All right, come on, this is not an IQ test. How many of you are familiar with Star Wars? Okay. All right, that was a breathing check. There's just a few that are not, but that's okay. All right, yeah, so Star Wars. When I was a kid, that was a movie that I was just fascinated with. So I remember the original Star Wars when it first came out. I probably saw it about 15 times. Just incredible. So, real quick, what's your favorite Star Wars character? So think about that. Boba Fett? C-3PO? Yoda? Alright. Luke? I'm sorry? Han Solo? Yeah, some great characters, huh? Some fantastic characters. I want to take you to a scene. This is my favorite image. Right here, my favorite image. Right there. Man, that was magical for me, okay? And it's still pretty powerful when you think about it. So here in this iconic scene, it's the midpoint of the movie, A New Hope, right? The original Star Wars. So right here in the midst of the movie, we see some classic characters, right? We got Luke Skywalker brandishing the lightsaber. There's Chewbacca back over there. There's R2-D2. There's C-3PO. Who's that other guy right there? Obi-Wan Kenobi, yeah. Right, the Millennium Falcon. It's a great scene. So I started thinking about this, and I'm like, one of my favorite characters is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Right? Think about who he is. What kind of qualities he has. And what I want you to do right now, just for fun, is at your table, you got round tables, and this is awesome. I want you to talk about the qualities of a mentor. And you can use Obi-Wan as an example, but just kick it around real quick, just for about 2 minutes. What are the qualities of a mentor? Give it up. Yeah, fantastic. I like the long-range element of a mentor, how that plays out. I like the fact that mentors themselves have mentors, right? So how many of you have your own mentor? Okay. How many of you should be raising your hand if you want to have a mentor? It's okay, it's all right. I was there one time, all right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. This is exciting because as I look at this room, I mean, look around this whole room. What do you guys see in here? A lot of teachers that are mentors, that are leaders. Think about the qualities that you guys just shared. That's reflected in this room, right? So that's why I'm excited to be here, is because what you guys are doing, you took up your evening today because you want to learn a little bit more. Why? For your own benefit, or for you to impact somebody else's life? Right? I believe you guys have a love for your kids, and you want to do a much better job. We all want to do a better job. You just want to find out, what can we do? How do I connect with that child? How do I connect with that classroom? Because that's what mentorship's all about, is connection. So, quick question. How many of you guys want to be a better leader? Right? This is not an IQ test either. We all want to be a better leader. So what I want to talk about today is really my belief that every person can be a more effective leader by taking others through the journey of life. The journey of life is represented by 4 different phases. So that's our opportunity. If we understand these phases of the journey, we can be a better mentor, we can make better connections, we can be that person that we described just a moment ago, that person we aspire to be. We can help other people. So I want to talk about these phases and have you guys talk a little bit more about how we can really manage this. And I showed these phases earlier. In that very first slide, I'm not going to put it back up, but if you think really quick, you saw those 4 phases. It was in that coin. We're going to talk about that. All right, so let's understand this scene, right? Luke Skywalker. Here, we're back on this image for a minute. We're back on the story. How did Luke get there? Did he get there by himself? No. He needed some help, didn't he? Right? When we first meet Luke in this movie, he is essentially an abandoned child living with his aunt and uncle on a desert planet, helping his uncle farm. By the way, doesn't that sound kind of strange? How does his uncle farm on a desert planet? I mean, what does he grow? But that's where he is, and you can tell he's not where he wants to be, right? He's got aspirations for something else. And he's at that first phase that a lot of us are at some point in time, and then he's at the imagination phase. He's imagining what life might be like, what it could be like. He doesn't want to be there. He wants to be somewhere else. And some of you probably have kids in your classroom that daydream, do you? Just a few, maybe? Maybe they want to be somewhere else. Let me share with you another movie that I wasn't going to share about, but I think it's appropriate. Have you guys ever seen the movie Stand and Deliver? Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. And so in that, you have a whole classroom of kids, high school, who they don't want to be there. They're in East LA. This guy, his name is Jaime Escalante, comes out of corporate world to be a teacher to teach computer science. Only problem is, he shows up day one, the principal says, we didn't have money to buy the computers, you're a math teacher. All right? So he goes into the classroom, all these kids are there, they don't want to be there, they're just ready to go, and they're not listening to anything. And he understands that, he sees that they can't even add or multiply. If you haven't seen it, you gotta go watch it, but it's just a powerful movie. It's a movie about a mentor who is able to manage not just one kid, but a whole classroom. So I think in that same situation, we realize that it's okay to imagine. And we as mentors, and I'm one too, I'm not a teacher, but there's opportunities for me to mentor. There's an opportunity for all of us to sit down with those kids, those young folks, our future generational leaders, and allow them to imagine. The cool thing about imagining is that you can't mess up when you imagine. So allow them to imagine, because that's where you can find some of those connections. I think part of the problem is finding that connection with that young child. What is it that they aspire? If you can find out what they're dreaming about, then you can probably make that next step from where they're at to where you want them to be, to allow them to reach that future. All right, so if it's basketball, if somebody in your classroom loves basketball, how do you tie basketball to math? There's a way, right? So that's just one example. You may have Amy who just doesn't like science at all. But she's in science class. What is it that she loves, and how do we take what she loves and apply science to it? Because there's a lot we could do with that too. So there's a lot of examples we could pull a little bit further, and if we had more time at our tables, we could probably share a couple of those examples. So really, that first phase is the imagination phase. The imagination phase is simply this. It's about imagining the possible. Okay? If you capture notes, I would encourage you to remember that. Phase one is imagining the possible. I love this quote from Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I have no idea who he is, but I love his quote. He says, the world of reality has its limits, but the world of imagination is boundless. Have you heard that quote before? It's pretty powerful. The world of reality has its limits, but the world of imagination is boundless. And Einstein, of course everybody's heard of Einstein, he had a great quote. And I know everybody thinks it's, imagination is more important than knowledge. That was great, but this one's even better. He said that imagination is a preview of life's coming attractions. And I really believe that to be true. And that's, we talked about our company earlier. That's where it started. It started in the imagination. All right, so STEM. I really think STEM applies. It's such a fantastic conduit to trigger the imagination when you think about STEM. So as you begin to apply and think about how you're going to connect with your children, think about where they're at as far as their imagination and how you can start to fire on those cylinders of imagination. All right, so back to the story. So here we are, Luke Skywalker's out there, he wants to leave, he doesn't like this planet. Then all of a sudden from the sky, from the heavens, lands two robots that show up in his world. R2-D2 and C-3PO. And from there, this is magic for him. So now he's got something new to engage with. He is a STEM kid. Think about what he's all about. He doesn't want to farm with his uncle. He wants to do something else. He's into science, technology, engineering, math. Well, maybe not math, but he's into technology, right? He's into it. In fact, he's tinkering with R2-D2, playing with R2-D2, and what happens? Princess Leia shows up. Now here's his long-lost, unknown sister talking about some old geezer named Obi-Wan Kenobi and that she needs help. He's like, Obi-Wan Kenobi. All right, so he knows of Ben Kenobi. So the very next morning, he wakes up and R2 is gone. So he goes and jumps in the old Tesla land speeder, and he speeds away to go find R2. Well, what happens after that? The next thing we see is there's Ben Kenobi, and he finds Luke unconscious, C-3PO ripped apart, and R2-D2 in a cave. Luke meets his mentor, right? And from that point forward, everything takes place. So he goes from the imagination phase to that creation phase. When he was messing with R2-D2, he was beginning to create. He was exploring what he could create at that point. So that creation phase is really important for STEM kids as well, right? So STEM, when you think about experience, STEM is one of those venues, I think, where a child can begin to take what they imagine and start to create. And it's such a powerful place to be. There's a line from The Matrix, another movie. It says, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And when you're creating, you're going from what you know, what you imagine, now you're starting to walk that path. And when you walk that path, you might trip up, you might fall, you might mess up, you might not get it right, but if you got a mentor there, they can help you through that. So allow that creation phase to happen. Allow them to mess up every now and then. I sure messed up when I was a young kid. But sometimes what happens when we mess up and we realize we failed, we don't want to do it again. So how do we encourage anybody to continue to create? So from the creation phase, then we get into something that's magical, and this is the exploration phase. That's phase 3. So in phase 3, this is where we want to explore the opportunities. Because every failure actually leads to a potential opportunity. Einstein again said, in the midst of difficulty lies opportunity. So when we're faced with challenges and difficulty, and we're trying to create something, all of a sudden opportunities open up. So here's what I want to do. There's a 4th phase. I don't want to get to it just yet, but I want you at your table right now to think about those 3 phases that we've talked about. The imagination phase, the creation phase, and the exploration phase. And think about what are the things that we can do, that I can do with my kids or within my classroom, within the space that I have. How do I allow them to explore? How do I take them away from just the status quo of giving them a test and making them do a report and give them a place to really experience something? Because the only thing you can possess is experience. Really. Truth to be understood must be lived. And you have an opportunity to do that when you allow them to explore. So real quick, just a few minutes, talk about what are the things that we can do to engage with our students in helping them imagine, helping them create, and helping them explore. Go ahead. Fantastic. Wow, that was good. So there's some really good answers here. And I know how this thing's set up. It's a great opportunity, and I think there'll be more time for you all to have some discussion, but definitely connect with each other, share these ideas, be a mentor to one another. All right, so the 4th phase is the discover phase. All right, so you imagine, create, you explore, and you discover. All right, so the imagine phase was imagining the possible. The second phase was creating the future, right? You're going to live in the future anyhow, so you might as well create it. That's my stance. The third one, just as a reminder, is exploring the opportunities. Right? And you guys were just talking about that. And the 4th one is discovering the bigger picture. So Luke, he doesn't know what the bigger picture was at the beginning, did he? When he was imagining, or when he was creating, or even now when he's exploring. But if you watch that movie all the way through, all of a sudden he discovers the bigger picture. He discovers who he was meant to be, right? So that's the opportunity that a mentor can have. And I look around this room, and you guys have been doing this, but I see mentors. I see Obi-Wans in this room. Right? And what I'm challenging you guys, and I'm challenging myself too, is to be an Obi-Wan connector. Alright? I know that sounds kind of funny, but I want you to think about that. I want you to remember this night as, wow, I can be an Obi-Wan connector. This guy was living by himself during the first two phases. He missed the opportunity to be with Luke during the imagination phase and the creation phase. It wasn't until the exploration phase that he's in his life. But we have an opportunity to connect early on and often. So, I just want to close with one more slide and answer any questions that you guys might have. This is not Star Wars, but this is one of my favorite images. What do you guys see in this image? Just go ahead and shout it out. What do you see? Aspiration. You see the imagination phase of play? Yeah? What else do y'all see? Joy? Cool. Is she in the classroom? No. What is she holding in her left hand? A biplane, right? Did she create that? Maybe? The creation phase? Yeah? You can almost see all four phases in this picture if you look harder. Who's up there in the sky? Someone's flying that plane. Maybe a mentor. The one thing speaking of mentor, the one thing as I look at this picture is like, where is the mentor? Are we missing out on an opportunity? Is she going to give up on that dream, or is she going to go forward with it? And again, I look around this room and I see, wow, we have an opportunity to make those kind of connections and be a mentor for somebody else and help a little girl like that who has a dream to be a pilot. That sounds crazy, but you know what? It's not crazy. She's imagining that. Allow her to create that. She creates this little plane. She's imagining that she's that pilot. She sees the plane up in the sky. She's imagining being that pilot, or maybe she's imagining building that plane. She built the biplane. She built the jet. She has an opportunity to explore the opportunities. She has an opportunity to discover the bigger picture. And all of us have that opportunity to help somebody else do that too. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys tonight, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you guys have.